Good evening. On behalf of the Canadian Woodlands Forum in Forest, Nova Scotia, I certainly wish to extend a sincere welcome to all of you who've joined us, especially on this pleasant summer evening here in Nova Scotia. My name is Peter Robichaud with the CWF. Certainly hope that you've all been keeping well. And once again, we're pleased to be able to reach out to you in this fashion in collaboration with our partners from Forest, Nova Scotia. We are certainly hopeful that we'll be able to return to in-person events real soon. As we've indicated, the focus of our webinar tonight is transformation of Northern Pulp. It's certainly generated lots of interest with over 200 registrants. Those of you representing landowners, forestry contractors, equipment suppliers, academia, the forest product sector, and lots of government officials as well. And special welcome to those members of the Cumberland Forest Advisory Committee who have been able to join us this evening as well. So before we get too far along though, I'd like to invite Todd Burgess with Forest Nova Scotia to say a few words. Todd.
Thanks, Peter. And it's Todd Burgess. I'm the Forestry Outreach Coordinator with Forest Nova Scotia. I may have met some of you. I'm sure I haven't met all of you, but I will, hopefully, over the coming months, have a chance at least to meet some of you. Now, there's been lots of announcements recently, some good, some bad, but the reality is we need a market for low quality wood in Nova Scotia in order to manage our woodlots properly. And we have an incredible opportunity, I think, right now to support an organization that's willing to invest in our small province. So hopefully this doesn't get squandered. And in fact, most of you will know this, but what we're about to hear, I think, is way more important than most Nova Scotians know or even realize. So hopefully you'll enjoy this presentation. I'm sure you will. And if you have questions afterwards, so be it. Peter?
Thanks very much, Todd. I'll be calling on our speaker here shortly, but just a few housekeeping items before we get started. I mean, unlike our in-person events, kind of limited interaction, during the webinar itself. But if you just hover your icon above the Q&A icon, essentially you'll be able to post your questions at any time during the presentation. You're not going to interfere with anything while it's ongoing. And what we'll do basically is we'll address the questions at the end of the presentation. We have a number of other guests that will be able to, if there's specific questions or whatever, we'll be able to kind of stick handle that and get your questions answered within the time permitting. So that's essentially how that will work. As I mentioned, our session today will focus on Nova Scotia's forest industry and the closure of Northern Pulp Kraft Mill in January 2020. Which, as you know, eliminated the primary market for sawmill residuals and pulpwood in Nova Scotia. Now, some of the impacts definitely very significant from the closure, but they've been relatively masked and deferred by the unprecedented markets that we've all experienced here over the last number of months for lumber and building materials. However, there's still been significant changes, as I mentioned, in fiber flows, continued downsizing of the workforce, stumpage values for landowners, forest management practices, and significantly reduced revenues across the entire fiber supply chain. Now, on a more positive note, as Todd alluded to, Northern Pulp and their parent company, Paper Excellence, remain committed to continuing business in Nova Scotia as a key member of a sustainable forestry sector. Now, as a result of their continued commitment, we're certainly pleased to have Dale Paterson from Northern Pulp back with us tonight, who will outline their new vision towards renewing and transforming every aspect of their operations with their ambitious plans for a best-in-class facility in Abercrombie. So Dale, I'm just going to ask you to come back on. There you are. And we'll just get you to maybe start sharing your screen in the presentation, and the floor will be all yours. Just go to the little, yeah, got her.
Okay.
You're all set. Thank you.
Okay. First of all, before I start the presentation, I'd like to apologize for the short notice on delaying this meeting from 2 weeks ago. The reasons for delaying the meeting were, number one, we wanted to make sure that we were and had the correct community presentations, the correct public announcements for this. It's a major step, and we wanted to take the extra time to improve the presentations and improve our press releases. The second thing is that we had taken the time, we had some suggestions in some previous meetings. That the presentation was too long and it was extending over to a time when people weren't, basically got bored because it was too long. We took advantage of that, redid the presentation, and have sped it up. The third thing is we wanted to look at some items that have been brought up in the first 8 presentations and be able to talk to the engineering company about how they potentially apply. What I'm going to present tonight is a transformation program, but it is really the start of the transformation. As we move through these presentations, we'll be collecting data, input, feedback to understand how we can improve the transformation of the mill, how we can improve the processes to be better. To that end, I have 2 members of the Environmental Liaison Committee that are present tonight, the chairperson, who is Kim McMillan, and one of the members, Dave McMillan. At the end of the presentation, they are going to stay for an extra 15 minutes to collect your reactions, to assist us in moving forward in the future. Also tonight with me is Rick Archibald, and I'm sure that all of you know Rick. On the agenda tonight, I'm going to talk about Northern Pulp, what we've heard so far, the transformation concept, the transformation timelines, and the next steps. Northern Pulp has been a producer of high-quality northern bleak softwood pulp. The mill, as you know, began operating in 1967. It was purchased by Paper Excellence in 2011. The mill has been producing 280,000 tons a year of kraft pulp, and it has a capacity of 300,000 tons. The nursery in deferred has been growing 5.5 million trees annually for replanting, and has just closed off the shipping of about 4.2 million trees, and will move another 1.3 million in the fall. The mill has been curtailed in a safe and environmentally sound hibernation. The company entered a Companies Creditor Arrangement Act in June, a year ago. The Woodlands continue to operate at a reduced capacity, making fiber available to the sawmills. And the boat harbor operations were transferred to Nova Scotia lands June the 1st of this year. When we look at the kraft manufacturing process, we bring the low quality wood, the wood chips, which are either produced from pulpwood or chips that are shipped in from the sawmills. They're cooked in a pressure vessel. As the chips exit the digester, because of the pressure decrease, the chips are blown apart. We move into washing and screening, where the residual chemicals and the lignin are washed from the pulp, and that washed lignin and chemical is taken back to the recovery cycle, where it is burnt and chemicals recovered and the lignin used for energy. We go into a bleach plant where it's bleached nice and bright, And then we take the pulp, which is about 1% water, and we remove the water till it's about 90 to 92% solid material. And it is shipped in about 270 kilo bales that are about 34 by 34 inches. If we look at the implementation of the Leahy triad model, one of the requirements, the big requirements of this is strong pulpwood markets that are providing the revenue that is required to have people harvesting wood. And as we move, as you know, wood goes two areas, the sawmill and the kraft mill. In the sawmill, the saw logs are moved into a number of different products, from fencing, housing, for firewood, for all kinds of furniture. On the kraft side, we see that the different materials that are made from kraft pulp, toilet paper, disposable medical gowns, masks, the fiber is used in LCD screens, it's used in your shoes, it's used in different cheeses. The pulp is used in the cheese, particularly the sprinkling cheeses and the shredded cheeses, and it's about 4% wood pulp in those products, and that is used to ensure that the cheese does not clump into one solid ball. Fruit juices, you'll see that market where the pulp is actually some of the pulp that's in your orange juice and other juices. When we look at that tree, 51% of the tree is pulpwood in one way or another. It comes to the mill. The volume of that pulpwood was approximately 1.3 million tons a year. Out of that tree, there's 30% lumber, and there is another 19 to 20% sawdust and bark, which came to the mill to produce energy, green energy. What have we heard? In the fall of last year, in September, we put together an environmental liaison committee of about 14 members. Those 14 members come from all different walks of life, from forestry to fishing to counselors to businessmen to retirees in the mill to workers in the mill. Their job during the first 2 months was to take a look back from the community looking into the mill and identify the issues of Northern Pulp. The issues they identified were transparency, the lack of community trust and leadership, First Nations involvement, odor and air quality, the water used and quality of wastewater discharge, mill appearance, our forestry practices, community involvement and partnerships, no pipeline in Northumberland Strait, and no off-site equipment. We then, from the Environmental Liaison Committee, took those comments that were put together, and the items that pertain to the mill were sent to a pulp consultant. And the pulp consultant looked at the number of issues that were to be dealt with, like smell, wastewater, improved wastewater, and from there developed a transformation concept. That transformation concept, from the original input of the Environmental Liaison Committee through to the consultant reviewing that, is what has formed the transformation concept of the mill. Additionally, the Environmental Liaison Group published a February report, which reported on a number of other issues that we've seen in the previous slide, and I will address those as we move forward. The transformation areas there are a number of them, and I just got to move this out of here. There we go. Sorry. What we're looking to do is have a clean, environmentally focused, and community-based mill. The 10 ingredients that we talked about in the previous slide, the community, the First Nations, transparency, the water, the air, forestry, energy, and appearance, are going to be reviewed in the upcoming slides. The sustainable future that we envision is a future that is focused on community input, engagement, and feedback. A full implementation of the Leahy Report on Northern Pulp owned and Crown managed land. Reconciliation, active outreach, and partnerships with First Nations and local communities. An engaged, independent environmental liaison committee. We have, over the last period of time the mill has operated, over 60,000 hectares of high conservation value land for permanent protection have been put aside. The mill itself supported 330 full-time local jobs and another 2,050 indirect jobs for Nova Scotian, including yourself in the forestry. The last point in this slide is to have a defined buy local procurement policy. Additionally, the total mill transformation will have a significantly reduced environmental footprint. It will be a low carbon and energy efficient operation. There will be an advanced wastewater system with new equipment located on the mill site. There will be an 80% reduction in odor with no detectable odor in the surrounding communities during normal operating conditions. The plumes you see exhausting from the mill will be reduced by 70%. There will be a 45% reduction in water use, and the mill will become the best-in-class wastewater quality operation in Canada. The conceptual details of what we have talked about. The community. We need to build trust. We need to have transparency and shared benefits. We are looking to have community input and feedback on the future of the mill, not only as we are putting together the mill and designing the mill, but also as we go into the future when the mill is operating. We're looking to have that active, independent environmental liaison committee, a committee that is from all walks of life and is our eyes and ears. We're looking to have a community contribution and participation program. The environmental characteristics of the mill, the items that are recorded on a normal basis to track the environment will be put on an environmental public dashboard that will be live, and people will be able to see things like the ambient monitors, things like the discharge from stacks that are tracked and put on the website. We will additionally track and address community impacts. When there is a complaint, we will address it. What we tend to do here is to strive to have an operation that is truly part of the community. First Nations, we want to work collaboratively and respectfully. We want to take the necessary steps and time to reconcile with PLFN. We are committed to building relationships, respecting Mi'kmaq rights and traditions, and supporting the social, cultural, environmental, and educational goals. There are many considerations. Some of these preliminary considerations are apprenticeship and professional in-training programs, participative holdings, and capacity building. Improving operational transparency. Many of you are familiar with ISO 14000. It is an environmental management system that can be used across many industries. This mill will be, once started, will be involved in the environmental management system of ISO 14001, which is a audited third-party independent system. As I talked about, the real-time public online dashboard will be available to people on a 24-hour-a-day basis. The testing and compliance testing for the operation will be managed by an independent third party who will report results to the community, to ourselves, and to Nova Scotia Environment. Reducing the volume of water used, we're looking to decrease the water usage by 45%. That's a lot of water. So how are we going to do that? The first thing is we will segregate cooling waters that are used, and we will cool those waters and reuse them. This area has the Middle River, which is an extremely warm river running up to 76 and 78 degrees. So during the summertime, a lot of water can be used to cool the process. This is where we will capitalize on cooling water to reduce the volumes used. Also, there is a scrubber on the power board I will talk about later, uses a large amount of water. Together, that will reduce the water flow to be a volume of 45,000 cubic meters a day. One of the philosophies we're going to utilize is to improve the wastewater before we treat it. To keep a number of items in the mill, recycle it, and burn them, creating energy that is used in the process and used to make power. Oxygen lignification is a word I'm sure you've heard about. What oxygen lignification system does, it removes 50% of the lignin going to the bleach plant before it goes to the bleach plant. So it does not leave the mill, it stays in the recovery cycle and is burnt. And the energy is recovered, and so are the chemicals. This will reduce the bleaching chemical costs by close to 50%, and will reduce that usage by 50%. The spill detection systems in the mill will be upgraded so that we recover lower content water from the drains. By lower content, chemicals that in the past have went to effluent treatment will be recovered and put back to the process. In the steam plant, we will be recovering the water from the drains and evaporating it and putting it back into the system. As you know, there are knots in wood. Typically, knots do not cook very well. And today what we would do is we would screen the knots out and take them to landfill. What we will do in the future is we will recook those knots and putting them back in the process and not taking them to landfill. Now the wastewater treatment, as you've seen in the previous slide, there is a lot of the lignin that will not be in the wastewater anymore. There are chemicals that will not be in the wastewater anymore. We will then take that wastewater and take it to primary and secondary treatment. Primary treatment is basically a clarifier to move any solids. Secondary treatment is biological. And what it does is it removes a lot of the material that would consume oxygen in the water. This primary and secondary treatment will be the same system that was talked about in the previous EA. However, what we will do is to that, we will add tertiary treatment. What tertiary treatment does is add another step of treatment. The color will go from that dark brown color you see to a very light color resembling very close to what you would see from water. The other thing is a lot of the inorganic materials will be removed in that tertiary treatment system. The tertiary treatment solids will be taken to an engineered landfill. The primary and secondary treatment, which is essentially fiber, and biological solids will be burnt in the power boiler. The wastewater will be it'll be released into Pictou Harbor. The exact location for that release will be determined as we go through the environmental studies in the harbor. The tertiary treatment is the second installed system of its type in North America. We have an operation in British Columbia that operates tertiary treatment, and we would be the second mill to utilize this and the first mill to use it on a full-time basis. So what does this do to the wastewater? What are the discharge improvements? And these improvements would be over what was proposed in the previous EA and what left Boat Harbor in the past. There's a 45% reduction in water use. There is a 50% reduction in chlorine-based compounds. There is a 69 to 70% reduction in biochemical oxygen demand and chemical oxygen demand. There's a 31% reduction in solids and a 72% reduction in color. A lot of those numbers in total do not mean a lot to a lot of people. However, when you put this all together, this becomes the best-in-class operation in Canada. So why is there a release possible in Pictou Harbor? There's less water used. The wastewater is fully treated, and there is an increased water flow. In the previous operations, we removed 70 to 85,000 cubic meters a day of water from the Middle River. That water went from the mill to Boat Harbor and then into Northumberland Strait. It bypassed Pictou Harbor. That resulted in Pictou Harbor having a lower water flow going into the Northumberland Strait than it does today. Since the mill shut down, all of the water that was being used in the mill is going through Pictou Harbor. The new proposal will use 45,000 cubic meters from Middle River, and the remainder will continue to go to the Middle River into Pictou Harbor. Following the tertiary treatment, the wastewater will be released adjacent to the mill site, and the fully treated wastewater and an increased water flow from Pictou Harbor will go through Pictou Harbor into Northumberland Strait. One of the major underlying areas in every discussion is, we call it odor, but the stink in the surrounding communities. There will be no detectable odor from the mill in the surrounding communities when we're operating normally. There is going to be a major piece of work done on the recovery boiler. That is we will convert the recovery boiler to a low odor configuration. What low odor means is that no liquor, black liquor or lignin will touch any part of the exhaust stream from the boiler. Today that happens, and this conversion has been done on a number of operations. The next thing is that there is gases. When we wash the black liquor out of or the lignin out of the fibre, there are vent gases that come from that washing stage and they go to the roof. Today, there's 3 stages of washes and 3 vents. Those vents will be collected and taken to the boiler for destruction. They will be used to supply air to the boiler versus fresh air. Today, there is only one device in the mill to burn the smelly gases. What will happen is there will be another dedicated combustor put in so that all of the gases are collected. Today, the system ran at 95% efficiency. The addition of a second device will put that efficiency of collection at 99.9%. Looking at the stacks, the current power boiler has a wet scrubber. That scrubber is no longer required for sulfur removal, as the mill no longer uses bunker oil in the boilers. When you burnt bunker oil, there was sulfur that came from that oil, so the water was used to scrub it. Bunker oil was stopped approximately 7 to 8 years ago in the mill and replaced with natural gas. Also, a wet electrostatic precipitator provides a high efficiency collection of fine particulate matter that was not captured by the wet scrubber. The recovery boiler low odor conversion eliminates odor in the recovery boiler emissions. There is also a wet scrubber on the power boiler stack that is used to recover heat and to scrub emissions. That water flow will also be stopped. When the water flow stops in those two big stacks, you will not see the stacks anymore. The stacks you will see them when it's colder than about -10 to -12 degrees outside. So those, as most of you have went by the mill, you see those two stacks that are billowing really hard. You will not see those in the future. The predicted air emission improvements. No mill odor, as I talked about, reduced greenhouse gas emissions, and a minimized visible plume. The smell will have an 80% reduction. The power boiler particulate will reduce by 75%. The stack will reduce by 70% in visibility. Chlorine dioxide, which is used in the bleach plant, there will be a 50% reduction, and a 9% reduction in greenhouse gases due to a drop in using natural gas on the site. In terms of forestry, we're looking to practice sustainable and ecological forestry, including a fully implemented Leahy report on Crown and Crown managed lands. On Northern Pulp's private lands and Crown allocation, looking to implement the Leahy report. The Leahy report needs the use of low quality wood to be taken to a receptor. The perfect receptor is the pulp mill, which can use all of the low quality wood. We are looking to maintain the SFI certification that we have, and we're looking to grow healthy forests with multiple tree species to support the fight against climate change. We will continue to work with the province to protect high-value ecological forest lands, and we have done that to the tune of 60,000 hectares of land. We're looking to provide that economically sustainable market for sawmill chips, low-grade pulpwood, including off-species such as pine, larch, and poplar. In the past, we have not used many of the off-species. During the transformation, we will retool the mill to be able to do that. And as we move forward, we will continue to maintain the open gate policy on company-owned land and promote the recreational land use through recreational organizations. In energy, we generate electricity from sustainable resources, reducing the greenhouse gas emissions as we're going forward. We'll have some unique opportunities available in terms of district heating for the communities. Our sustainable energy use, 92% of our energy basket came from renewable energy in 2019. That means the lignin from the wood chips and the biomass that we received for the biomass boiler. In greenhouse gas emissions, The 2019 emissions were 40% below its 1990 discharges. The transformation further decreases these by 9%, which is equal to about 4,500 tons of CO2 equivalents annually. There's a very unique opportunity available with waste heat from the operation. That waste heat can be used to provide heat for greenhouses. It can provide heat for district heating in the communities. This is a unique opportunity, and you see this opportunity practiced in Scandinavia, where those communities close to a pulp mill exchange the heat from the wastewater and use that to heat their homes. There have been a number of comments as we collected comments through the Environmental Liaison Committee, through the different people I talked to about essentially how ugly the mill looks. We're going to take that on and spruce up the mill, repaint it, install new siding, remove some of the unused equipment, and at the same time, as I talked about earlier, reduce those stack discharge visibilities. This is a picture of where the equipment would be located in the mill. If I go to the left and you see a bunch of circular items about 2/3 of the way up the page, that is the primary, secondary, and tertiary treatment center for the wastewater. If I go to the bottom right of the page, this is a spill lagoon. That spill lagoon will have the capacity of 20 hours of mill operation for wastewater flow. That basin will protect if the effluent does not match the feed requirements of the new system, it will be diverted to this spill basin to ensure that our effluent treatment system becomes healthy. If there is a major catastrophic failure in the operation in terms of a tank, there is no tank that is greater than 50% of that capacity. This is all designed to ensure not only our effluent treatment is kept in good operation, but that there is no spill material reaching the receiving water. The next steps that we're going to be working hard at over the next while during the summer, we are going to introduce the transformation concept to the communities, to people like yourselves, and receive feedback. We're looking to the Minister of Environment to determine the environmental assessment requirement for the facility. And once we're having received that, we're looking to start the formal environmental assessment process. And that includes scientific, environmental studies and community engagement. In the fall of 2021, we will refine the transformation concept based on the community input that we've received through the summer and early fall. We will then look at the environmental studies and work with the community on community engagement to report back, to have our findings put in front of the community. A lot of the reports that we receive as we move forward will be put onto a website for community viewing, which I'll address in a few minutes. If I look at a timeline, today we're at 2021. We have come forward and put together a project. We are looking for community engagement and input on the project. As we go into this fall, we will finalize the transformation plan. We will work on the environmental assessment, which we believe the environmental assessment will take to about 2023. And we're basing that timeline on a Class 2 EA. From there, the construction is envisioned to take 2 years. So that puts us into early 2025. We are just going to be starting a website. It'll be up and running within the next 2 days. It's an information and engagement website. It's called www.tomorrowsmill.ca. You can ask questions. You can provide input. We have a software which we'll be doing community open houses with, much like the software that's being used here tonight. And as we move out of COVID, we'll be looking to do some engagement sessions with the community and interest groups. There's also another site that can be contacted. That's the Environmental Liaison Committee, and that's environmentalliaison@gmail.com. And this, I want to remind people what the website is, where you can go on. Today, you will find just one page. Within the next 2 days, you will find a website that has been initiated. I encourage you to all look at the website, follow it through, and look for the postings as they start to appear. You will also find this presentation on that website. That is my presentation. I thank you for your attention and am certainly open to questions.
Thanks very much, Dale. Just let's see what we have for some questions here. All right, and anybody that's been sitting standby here with the ELC or whatever, if you want to join into the group to be part of the answering the questions, please by all means you can join in. Just start your video and unmute, and you'll be able to join in. So there's a question here, Dale, from Greg DeMont with Premier Rankin's announcement of 350 megawatt of renewable energy for Nova Scotia. Is Northern Pulp considering increasing generation capacity to produce 60 million watts of green energy?
Yes, but I'd have to say yes, but there's a rider on that. We have to initiate a study of biomass availability and the how we would transport it to the site. But the initial reaction is yes, and we'll have to start that with a biomass study before we enter.
So as a follow-up to that, Dale, can you do a comparison of the river water and the new effluent? Comment there sounds like it will be cleaner than the water being taken in.
No, it won't be cleaner than the water being taken in, but it's going to be a long ways from where it is today. I can't give you the exact numbers. As we do the studies and do the engineering, we will report on those numbers, but we expect the wastewater from the mill to be pretty clean.
Mm-hmm. Another question here, all North American pulp mills release treated water into the natural environment, typically freshwater rivers. Is there a further advantage for treated wastewater to be discharged into a saltwater environment specific to BOD?
Specific to BOD? No. The typically saltwater discharges have a lot more flush, a lot more rapid flush because of the tides, whereas the river is slower moving than the flushing actions and the dilution actions of tidal waters. So it would be tidal water flushing currents are much higher than a river.
Okay. From Greg Maloney, are you planning to incorporate any new state-of-the-art technologies for real-time monitoring of BOD, COD?
Currently, most of the monitoring that happens on BOD and COD, there is some very early pilot work that's going on to be able to track some COD. It's not that easy. If it's out there, we will entertain it. We will be tracking, what our intent is to do with instrumentation is double it so that there's 1 and 2 backups, so that if there's to increase the availability of 99.5% on instrumentation, so that we're active all the time. But as technology comes, yes, we are looking for that kind of technology.
from Patrick Bone. Do you have an estimate of what the total capital investment involved is for the new mill?
Yes, we do. The capital investment for the previous EA was about $150 million. This investment is $350 million. That investment is approximately 50% labor in the construction, 50% equipment. If you translate that into jobs, that's over year 1 and year 2 of the construction is 600 full-time jobs.
Okay. Next question here. With a renewed mill operations, is the anticipated wood fiber use basically going to be the same, more or less volume than most recent operations?
Okay. The wood volume will probably go up a little bit in terms of increasing the wood volume. The listed capacity of the mill is about 300,000 tons today. We were producing about 280. We'd like to produce closer to the 300,000 ton mark, but we'll have to do work at that. But it essentially may be about the same or a little bit more.
Okay. Any other questions out there? Well, you must have done a great job answering all their questions, Dale. We don't seem to have any more called up on the screen here.
What I'd like to do, Peter, if it's okay, I'd like to ask Kim McLaughlin, the chairperson of the ELC. I mentioned the environmental liaison quite a few times, but maybe Kim could just speak to all the people there about what the environmental liaison committee does, who they are, and what their objectives are.
Okay, Dale, yes. Our objectives basically is to hear the concerns of the community. We're an independent group. We consist of fishermen, forestry contractors, former mill employees, retirees, environmentalists, biologists. We're really looking to hear feedback from the stakeholders and find out what they like, what they don't like, what their vision might be for the future of the mill. So anytime anybody's interested, please give us a call or email us. We're really looking forward to hearing from people. So Dave, if you'd like to add anything, please go ahead. You there, Dave?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm just unmuting. No, Kim, I think you've done a pretty good job of capturing the essence of what we're supposed to do. I think it's important, if I could add one thing, it's that we have been really unfettered in terms of what we've been allowed to do over the past 10 months. The ELC, we have not been held back in any kind of way as a result of Northern Pulp as an organization having concerns. We've not been held back in terms of some of the proposals that we've put forward, monetarily wise. Dale talked a few minutes ago about the much higher price tag of the changes. Over the past 10 months, the ELC really sat down and looked at 2 years worth of feedback during the original EA process and pulled that stuff apart and said, okay, what is the community upset about? What is the community happy about in terms of the mill being here? And put together a plan which Dale has talked about today. I can tell you that probably 99% of all of the issues and concerns and so on that we put forward, Dale has addressed in the transformation plan. So we feel pretty good about that. We feel that, perhaps Northern has begun to listen. And the ELC, from my perspective as a member, I can honestly say that, 99% of everything that we've talked about, including forestry practices, which is near and dear to my heart, there's been a huge amount of work, a huge amount of change in terms of what perhaps would have been normal before and what the ELC is proposing today. And we're going to continue to do that. And you know, for those individuals listening to this presentation today, we are more than happy to have you present to us either through our website or even better in person. As COVID restrictions relax, we hope to see more and more of the local communities.
Yes, exactly, Dave. Yeah, we weren't giving any mandate other than to see what people wanted. And they really left us to our own devices to put it out there to see what was possible, really. You know, I mean, in all actuality, it was great to do. So
It was. Yep.
Just a couple of more questions there, Dale, perhaps. Just for clarification, as in regards to mill consumption, you mentioned the value of 300,000 tons. Was that finished product or essentially fiber consumed?
No, that was finished product. We consumed and will consume about 1.3 million tons of wood chips per year, either delivered by pulpwood or sawmill residual.
Okay, great. Do you think there's any hope, or I guess it's in regards to the class 1 and the environmental assessment, could it go to a class 1 instead of a class 2, do you think? Or I guess that hasn't been determined.
It really hasn't been determined. We had originally designed our schedules on a class 1. We have altered the schedule to include a class 2. So we're waiting really for the minister to tell us what that decision is. We are saying we will hunker down and we will work hard on whatever the minister asks.
From the procurement, as you know, we're a relatively compact region here throughout the Maritimes, and in the past, do you anticipate procuring your fiber needs from outside of Nova Scotia in the future, Southern New Brunswick, PEI, just as you were before? Or?
Actually, we do deal with a major sawmill, Delco, and that really is the wood supply we'll deal with. And the rest is Nova Scotia and perhaps a small amount from other places, but not a major amount.
Okay.
Rick, you want to comment on that for me, Mr. Archibald?
Yes, I will. Unfortunately, my video now won't come up. Maybe Peter, you can do something there. But we historically have bought sawmill chips out of New Brunswick, the largest being, as Dale said, from Delco, some other mills as well, smaller mills, and a small mill in PEI. We would continue to look forward to doing that again. We also have bought pulpwood out of Southern New Brunswick. And once again, if the demands are there in the local market in Nova Scotia are filled and delivering all, we would buy some from New Brunswick again. But the bulk of it, majority is all from Nova Scotia when you look at 1.2 to 1.3 million tons. And I would add one other comment. Dale mentioned about, might be the same usage or slight increase. I think we would say what Dale and the mill folks have agreed to by doing the work to use the off species, I'll call it underutilized species, pine, larch, if you call it aspen or poplar, I would see a higher usage of those products compared to before. So when you looked at the spruce fir content, it probably would be no different than before. It would be increased use of underutilized species. And one other last comment I just want to make there as well is on the green energy. Dale said we're 92% self-sufficient on green energy. And he used the word biomass. I would say to you that we were 100% bark from sawmills and pulp, bark from the sawmills or pulpwood, and we were not utilizing any softwood or hardwood bollwood for making our green energy. It was all from residue from sawmills or chipping operations.
All right, Rick, hang on here. Another question in regards to implementing the ecological forestry practices on Northern Pulp owned lands. There we go, you figured it out.
Yeah, well, I've always been known to be a bit slow.
Will this involve all 3 legs of the triad?
Yes, it will. It will involve all three legs. Being that Northern Pulp land is not Crown land or the people's land, the ratio of each will probably be different compared to what you see being implemented on the Crown land. But it would include all three legs. And I would say to you, it would be a major paradigm shift for us. You know, we're myself and others were from the 1984 Royal Commission days, where it was about growing fiber to something, something like agriculture. And so it's a different world today, and we will have to make those changes. The ELC committee has been in communication and wanting to understand exactly how we would do that. So I foresee them working with us to move in that direction, all three legs.
In light of the timeline here, do you expect the availability of contractors or the use of contractors in the wood supply to be similar to what they were pre-mill closure?
To get the total of fiber will be similar. I would say to you, there's a supply chain that's out there now, and with the sawmills, the private. Our presence on company operations may not be as large. It could be much more working with private wood suppliers and partnerships that way, is what I would foresee probably moving forward. It'll be a major undertaking to obviously get the supply chain there, given that today a lot of that low grade is not moving. But at the same time, as Dale showed, the time horizon here is multiple years. So if we work efficiently at that with all the partners, there should be ways to make this happen. It'll have to, like I said, a major paradigm shift compared to how we operated before.
Well, lots of good questions and input here. That's really what we have for questions here at this time, Dale and Rick and Dave.
Okay. What I would then like to do, Peter, is say thank you very much for everybody taking the time to out of their busy evenings and the nice evening. Certainly appreciate that. I'm going to say goodbye along with Rick, and I'm going to leave the two members of the ELC with your group for.
Well, on behalf of the entire group here, we thank you for a great presentation. It's good to hear. Very encouraging to hear the plans in transforming. We definitely need the mill and the market in order to move forward, both in forestry as well as just the sustainability of our sector. So thanks again, Dale and Rick.
You're going to hear a public announcement in the next day and a half in terms of the transformation project.
Great, thank you. Thank you for sharing. Take care.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay, Dave, I'll turn it over to you. You can lead the questions if you'd like. So
one of the jobs of the ELC is really to monitor what Northern Pulp is doing and how well are they doing in terms of, for example, the presentation that was made today. We, as an ELC, one of our concerns, and one of the concerns that became apparent over our 10 months of community involvement, is that Northern did a very poor job of communicating in the past. And so one of our mandates, if you will, is as an ELC group, is to change that. And so we are going to, in future presentations, we're actually going to post these questions that I have in front of me. But anyway, the question number one that we're curious about amongst the members that have participated today, did the presentation address your concerns? And if not, what specific information was lacking from an environmental perspective, from a forestry perspective, from a community perspective, and from an economic perspective? Was the length of the presentation appropriate? In other words, was it too long? Was it too short? Question number three, was the level of technical information appropriate? Was it too simplistic or was it too complicated? Question number four, was Dale effective as a speaker? Was he interesting? And was he knowledgeable? Question number 5, sorry. Were your questions answered to your satisfaction? If not, what do we need to do to follow through on to ensure that your questions were appropriately answered? Question number 6. As a result of listening to this presentation, would you say that your perspective has been altered in any way? And lastly, question number 7, what advice would you give to us to improve the gathering of public comment? Because ultimately, that's the reason why the ELC exists. It's to gather public input and make sure that that input is used in the future with any decisions that are made regarding Northern Pulp's transformation.
So what we could also do, Dave, if you think it's appropriate, we do plan to send out the link for the presentation to all those who registered.
Yes.
Within that e-blast, we can also reiterate those basic questions with the email address. For those who want to comment specifically to your email address, we can, and then in addition to that, we'll have the link to the presentation, the website, just to make sure we've included all the information there as a follow-up, I guess, to this evening's presentation.
Yes, that would be great if you could do that. We're really looking for feedback. We're hoping to do another report at the end of the summer based on the feedback we've heard back from various stakeholders. So the more feedback we have, the better it will be for our report. So
I'd like to conclude on a statement that Dale made during his presentation, because I think it's really important. Dale commented that the changes that are being proposed for the Abercrombie mill are changes that will probably put this mill in the forefront of craft mills for sure in Canada. It will be up there in terms of its performance in North America, and it will, because a lot of the science and technologies that we're looking at are European based, it will also rival mills that you would find in first world countries in Western Europe. The fact that we are getting criticism, quiet criticism from other pulp and paper operations because the benchmark that this mill is setting is so high that other mills in our part of the world are expressing concern about that. So as an ELC committee, I take that as a good sign that we're on the right track. But ultimately, the ELC's goal is to, and ultimately my goal as a participant on this committee is at the end of the day, I'd like to know that the work that the ELC has done will ultimately create a transformation, an operation that will be the envy of the Western world, both in terms of craft pulp mill operation as well as forestry practices and stakeholder and rights holders engagement, because ultimately that's the challenge that's facing us today.
does anybody have any questions for us here on the spot? I mean, I know we're going to send the questions out to the panel of people, invitees, I guess, but does anybody have any questions right here on live here today? So
We're not seeing anything on the screen here right at the moment, Kim.
okay.
So perhaps, like we outlined, we'll be sending out a copy of the presentation, and in the e-blast, we'll make sure we get the questions and the contact information for the ELC right in the e-blast, and we'll send it out to all the registrants that participated. So we can certainly do that for you in that regard. So
Perfect.
awesome. Okay. Well, on behalf of the attendees and everyone, the CWF Force Nova Scotia, Dave and Kim, thank you very much for joining in. I know it's been a very grueling year in that sense, very intense and persistent kind of approach. So we certainly want to thank you. Just on behalf of the webinar and everything, I would certainly like to recognize as well our continued support with our partners, the Canadian Wood Fibre Centre, for sponsoring our webinar series. Again, as I mentioned, we'll be reaching out to all the registrants with a recording and the links and all the information here. And really in closing, on behalf of the CWF and Forest Nova Scotia, we thank everybody for joining in and look forward to literally seeing you hopefully in the near future in person. And with that, we'd like everyone to still remain diligent and stay safe, and bye for now. Thanks for joining in. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye now.